Hello, friends, and welcome to the lecture preparation. This is for February the 11th, 2018. This is the last Sunday before Ash Wednesday as we begin our observance of Lent in this year. Both of these, or the first reading and the Gospel, are both very specifically speaking about leprosy, but they have different approaches to that leprosy. This first reading from Leviticus as it says in the book, it can sound very harsh, but and it is. But it was intended to protect the community of the contagious disease that we call leprosy. Now, they had no cure for it, and it was deadly and very disruptive for the community. So they had no choice but to identify those who had contracted the disease and then to separate them. Make sure that as you can read to the left of the comments, keep your tone light so God doesn't sound angry or judgmental, and keep the instructions simple. Don't shout, and even a little bit tone of a tinge of sadness at the end when we have to proclaim that these persons will have to dwell apart, because indeed it is very sad. A reading from the book of Leviticus. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "If someone has on his skin a scab or pustule or blotch which appears to be the sore of leprosy, he shall be brought to Aaron the priest or to one of the priests among his descendants. If the man is leprous and unclean, the priest shall declare him unclean by reason of the sore on his head. The one who bears the sore of leprosy shall keep his garments rent and his head bare, and shall muffle his beard. He shall cry out, 'Unclean, unclean.' As long as the sore is on him, he shall declare himself unclean, since he is in fact unclean. He shall dwell apart, making his abode outside the camp." The word of the Lord. So don't try to make too much of that reading. A little bit different from what I normally tell you. Just kind of straightforward. The second reading, again, we continue in the letter of St. Paul to the Corinthians. And I'll read the commentary on that. In 1 Corinthians, Paul addresses many questions posed to him by the Christian community about marriage and virginity, idolatry, and practical situations such as buying meat that has been offered to pagan sacrifice, or whether they should accept dinner invitations from unbelievers. In today's short reading, Paul concludes his advice, giving it a strong theological foundation. He begins by telling his audience, "Whatever you do, do everything for the glory of God." He has already told them that while certain actions might not be morally wrong, they should be guided by how the action would affect their neighbors. Even if a certain action is allowed, will someone be scandalized by it? The glory of God is the first motivation, followed by considering the impact of one's actions on others. These take precedence over one's own benefit or desires and can result in many being saved. When Paul says, "Be imitators of me as I am of Christ," he's encouraging the Corinthians to join him in making Christ the standard of everything they do. Christ himself did all for God's glory and for the benefit of both Jews and Greeks, that they might be saved. Just a couple of comments in there. I mainly want to point out the last line. Make sure it doesn't come across kind of arrogant. "Be imitators of me as I am in Christ," but really with humility, but as such, more like, "Be imitators of me as I am in Christ." So I think if you emphasize Christ and imitators, will come across just fine. A reading from the first letter of St. Paul to the Corinthians. Brothers and sisters, whatever you eat or drink or whatever you do everything for the glory of God. Avoid giving offense, whether to the Jews or Greeks or the Church of God, just as I try to please everyone in every way, not seeking my own benefit, but that of the many, that they may be saved. Be imitators of me, as I am of Christ. The word of the Lord. In the gospel, then, I'd mentioned that it also talks about the lepers, or there's a situation with lepers, but instead of shunning them, Jesus breaks all those rules. He touches him and heals him. So it turns out to be more about healing, and we don't really face leprosy as a common disease these days, but we have other diseases such as mental illness, sometimes even addictions that put people outside of the community, and many of them we see are homeless, and so it's a kind of a situation, and but Jesus calls for healing for everyone. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. A leper came to Jesus and, kneeling down, begged him and said, "If you wish, you can make me clean." Moved with pity, he stretched out his hand, touched him, and said to him, "I do will it. Be made clean." The leprosy left him immediately, and he was made clean. Then, warning him sternly, he dismissed him at once. He said to him, "See that you tell no one anything, but go and show yourself to the priest and offer for your cleansing what Moses prescribed. That will be proof for them." The man went away and began to publicize the whole matter. He spread the report abroad so that it was impossible for Jesus to enter the town openly. He remained outside in deserted places, and people just kept coming to him from everywhere. The Gospel of the Lord. Before I close out this session, I want to encourage all of you to consider Fridays in Lent. Larry Frere is presenting, I believe he eats each Friday in the morning at around 9 o'clock, I think, a series on Lectio Divina, which is praying the Scriptures. And this would be excellent for all of you to go to. I know all of you can't come, but I'm going to try to make as many of those as I can, and I'd like to encourage you also. As far as lector training and preparation, this will, as at least from what I know about it, I think this would be really excellent and a good Lenten practice for you. You know, our practice is to give alms, to pray, and what's the other? Fast. Yeah. So so this would be a really good practice for you, and I would highly encourage all of you lectors, ministers of the Word, to try to, if you can't make all of them, at least make one or a few of them. Okay, thanks. God bless all of you.